Welcome to the Meetings Podcast, the meeting organizer's podcast source for what's new in the meetings and events industry. Meetings Podcast is a conversation with a variety of voices that looks at events, meetings, and media. Meetings Podcast is sponsored by IMEX America, America's worldwide exhibition for incentive travel, meetings, and events.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here again today with Elizabeth Glau of Building Blocks Social Media. And the last time Elizabeth was on with me, we were talking about CRM and software and small businesses. So we've come back to do kind of a follow-up on that and talk a bit more about some of the things. And I think today we're going to focus a little bit on social and CRM.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm happy to be here.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, we felt like last time we had so much more we wanted to talk about at the end of our CRM podcast, and we started getting into a little bit of social CRM topics. So we kind of just decided to maybe better to do a follow up on that.
Kind of worth a whole show, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And now that we've sat here and talked about some ideas and had a good time conversing about it, hopefully we can keep it to one show.
Yes.
Not need another follow up to the follow up. But we'll see how it goes. So I guess the idea, kind of where we left off was, we were talking about CRM, which, in case you didn't hear the other one, is a customer relationship management. So it's basically your database where you keep all of your customer contacts and things. And where we had started to kind of talk about was integrating social data into that CRM database. So potentially, and I think, some of these systems will get better at integrating, and a lot of them say that they're social now.
Right.
However, as I kind of alluded to last time, the research that I've done has shown that none of them really are truly social. They say that they're social in the sense that, maybe it's got a field where you can enter somebody's Twitter handle into it, something like that. There is one that I mentioned last time. It's called Nimble. Mm-hmm. That really does have a full integration, but they just they're just not ready yet. I don't know. They're in, alpha or beta or something, but it's been glitchy every time I've used it. So they're the only ones that have potential, but I can't quite, fully recommend them.
Not quite there
yet for that. So I think what we wanted to talk about today was, having this social data where when you need it and where you want it. Mm-hmm. So one of the great examples, that I like giving in presentations is same about to email somebody. And, wouldn't it be great to actually mention something that I saw on, their online profile about, what's new with them, or the last thing they tweeted, or the last thing that they were talking about on Facebook, and things like that. And I could actually reference that in that conversation in an attempt to, reference something that I really care about, as a person. And,
right.
And you should tell the story you had about, how we used to kind of build those relationships and, keep those relationships going and how that's changed.
Well, and when we were chatting beforehand, just putting the material together for this, I was telling Elizabeth a story about having a phone call come in late in the day. This is probably about 15, 16 years ago. So it was really before there was social media and before there was a lot of internet activity, just email. Mm-hmm. And it was a customer or a potential customer who I'd cold called on and said, "Can I talk to you a little bit about what you guys can do and what your capabilities are?" And I ended up on a conference call with her whole team. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, getting an RFP and then doing up to 40 meetings a year for them for a while. It was a pharma group. Mm-hmm. And so something like that, and actually something that also comes into this conversation was I've had a lot of discussions with other people, even outside of our industry, who work in sales. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the challenges today because we had a brief call on the example that I'm using, and we were able to have some sort of relationship, and it came through a recommendation, which I found out later where it came from, and information like that used to be shared on a phone call, and you'd have an introductory chat, and you'd get to know the person over time, and ultimately get
But
opportunity.
if I can interrupt, the relationship started because of the trust, because
Right.
you were referred by somebody else.
Absolutely.
So you weren't just starting from scratch there. So, yeah.
And so, yeah, I wasn't just a cold call that had come in and they randomly picked out.
Right.
But, building those relationships take time and take an exchange of information and talking about what you like and what that person likes. And, all of that builds up over time. And there are a lot of people try and sort of shortcut that with the CRM process, and that doesn't really work. And at the same time, what I was heading around to on people outside our industry, we've talked about the current economy and the way that people are buying. It's very challenging because you don't have time to build a relationship. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, people would go play golf for the afternoon or go to lunch, And
A free martini lunch, nonetheless.
Yeah. not the quick run through the sandwich shop.
We're really getting to know each other. That's the idea, anyway.
And so, those all had their place, but now those aren't really available tools. I mean, I can't call up most of my customers and say, oh, do you want to take the whole afternoon off and go play golf with me?
Right, exactly.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So how do you build those, the real crux of this is how do you start to build those relationships with people when people don't have time to build relationships?
Exactly. Exactly. So that's great. Yeah, I loved it when John brought up that story about that salesperson he was talking to, and the whole golf tie-in and everything, because it made total sense with, I think what we were trying to talk about today is, what are the ways now in today's world, in today's society with, information overload and everybody on these social, platforms are talking about themselves. We all love to talk about ourselves.
Right.
Right. So, a savvy networker is going to start listening. Talk less about yourself, right? Which is just good, basic social or sales skills anyway.
Right.
I'd actually seen something the other day that said introverts are better salespeople because they shut up and listen, right? What a concept! Like, who knew? Or no, it was people that were in the middle of being an introvert and an extrovert, like people that were right in the middle. That's what it was, because that's where I am. That's why I honed in on it. I was like, hey, that's me. I got it. That makes sense. So anyway, people are, just talking about themselves all over social media. So you have the opportunity to, engage in these conversations, whether it's, it could be a potential client. It could be, just someone else that, is within your professional network, whatever it is. Start listening to what people are saying about themselves, because they're sharing the same type of information that you would maybe talk to somebody about on the golf course. Right. They're talking about their kids. They're sharing pictures of their kids.
Their vacation.
Right. So instead of saying, "Did you go on vacation this year?" Instead, you can start the conversation with, "How was your vacation in Hawaii?" I mean, you clearly, you saw the pictures that they posted, and if you can even be more specific than that, it's even better. But the idea, and this is, one of the things John and I were talking about before, was, clearly you actually have to be authentically, genuinely, interested.
Yeah.
Right. If you just start, stalking people online and, referencing their vacations and stuff, and it feels like it's kind of out of the blue to them, and
it can be a little creepy,
random, right? They may not, take it that way. So again, I think it's, think about the whole relationship cycle, right?
Right.
Do you already have that trust? And I would point out, and this is why I pointed out in your story about, you were referred by someone, which means, in that scenario, you kind of had some of that trust, right? Without having to build it yourself.
Right.
And that's another reason that these social media channels are so important for you to, instead of, or less so talking about yourself, but putting out good information, sharing good ideas, sharing industry articles, things like that, because you don't realize how many people are actually seeing what you post.
Right.
And, you may start a conversation with somebody that you think is a little bit out of the blue, right? You haven't talked to them in person too much, but you may be surprised to learn that they know all about you. If you've done a good job with your social media and you've made a positive impression on them, you might be able to call them and they feel like the relationship has already started. And then for you to say, how was your vacation in Hawaii? They might think that's great.
Right.
They might just think like, that's fantastic. That you're paying attention to me because I know I'm paying attention to you.
Right.
So it's, being interested in each other.
Well, and as we talked about, it could be a little creepy or a little stalkerish, but at the same time, people are adapting to this, and they're
Exactly.
adjusting and starting to understand that you're putting public information out there. I mean, I'm always very cautious what I put into my Twitter, into my Facebook, into my LinkedIn streams.
Right.
And so that information I know is going out into the public, and it never goes back into the bottle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
to.
The internet is written in ink.
Yes.
That's a line from The Social Network, by the way.
But so you had a couple of different ways to integrate this,
Yeah.
and we're kind of looking again at ways that somebody who's more of a small business, because there are these great tools that you can pay lots of money
Yeah.
and have whole teams monitoring, but we know a lot of the people that we're kind of addressing this specific topic to
Right.
don't have those resources.
Yeah.
So what can an individual do?
Exactly. Again, our kind of goal, our track for the year, I think it's going to be focusing on small businesses, independent planners. So certainly you can't afford, a large social media monitoring system, and you may not even be aware that these types of things exist. But yes, there are, huge computer systems that are set up to just monitor who's talking about you, of those people, who are the most influential, all kinds of crazy stuff. So I mean, we have found a couple of tools for you that are better just kind of on an individual, basis. They're free.
Right. Which
Right.
is
These are
good.
free or cheap. And they really are, things that are set up more towards, small businesses and just individuals. Again, when we're talking about B2B sales, business to business, I always have to remind people that business to business is more relationship based. It's more that person to person interaction and engagement than it is when you're buying from, Target or some
Right.
big company. So one of the tools that you can look at is, if you're using Outlook, definitely right away you should look into the LinkedIn Outlook connector, or it might just be Outlook connector, because I know you can also integrate Facebook in with that. And basically all it does is you pull up, you go to start a new email and you type in, say I'm going to email John. So it will pull up, a little picture of him on the bottom. There are ways, that I can once I've pulled him up, I can see again, like what the last thing was that he tweeted or not tweeted. In this case, it would be Facebook or LinkedIn.
Right, the
what
last status
thing-
update
and
on those.
it also has some other good features too. I can see all the emails that we've shared, basically things that are specific to my relationship with him. And so, again, referencing something that he might have just said, I think goes a long way in continuing that relationship when I'm going to email him anyway about
Right.
something. And, another suggestion I have is if you are getting savvier with, your smartphone, I would sync all of your contacts. So you've got your list of contacts in your phone, and there are ways that you can sync them with those people's Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter,
Right.
and everything else. And this has really come in handy for me, because sometimes I might not have an email address handy for somebody, but if they've made their email public on their Facebook profile, I can actually just pull that right up in my phone, like
Right.
under their contact. I've often also sent a message to somebody through Facebook. If for some reason, they didn't
You
make
can't
that
find their
public or
email.
whatever, I
Yeah.
can't find it, then I can always, just message them through Facebook. But they're easy to find, right? I'm not, going through, one platform at a time to try to figure out, like, how can I connect with this person, that kind of thing. So,
Well, and from the Mac perspective, there's that integration now as well. Like in the mail program, iCalendar, all of those pieces do work together in if you're on a Mac.
yeah.
And share that same sort of information. I even get notifications on my laptop when, like, you made an update about us recording a podcast
Right.
that came through. I got a notification on my laptop while I was working
Right.
that you mentioned me, basically.
Right. Exactly. And, and something I just thought of actually is, on really a smart way to use Facebook these days. I mean, you really should kind of separate people into different lists and groups and things anyway. If you are at all concerned about, privacy settings and who you're sharing
Right.
with who. Yeah, it takes some work to do that, and it's not as easy as it is on like Google Plus, right? Where you're forced to do it when you add a contact, you're forced to put them in a circle.
In a circle, right?
Whereas on Facebook, you have to kind of go back in when you add somebody, make sure you do that. But Make sure that you've got the people that you really want to make sure that you see their updates on. You can get notifications whenever they post a new update. And again, yes, that's semi-stalker, but you may just do that like for your close family.